When the pandemic hit, I thought, oh, that's kind of like blessing in disguise, because they'll go and I'll be healed by the time it gets back over and we can go and do shows. But I'm no better. I can't walk. I can't function. I feel like a 99-year-old guy, you know. I haven't got no support on the back of my neck. So your head is a third of the weight of your body. So the gravity gets in and I can't hold my head up. Which I can't win.
When Sharon Osbourne finally sat down to speak about Ozzy's death, her words carried a weight that no camera could soften, no headline could dramatize. She didn't dress it up. She didn't try to find the right poetic phrases. She didn't put on her usual armor of wit and steel. She just said it flat, raw, without apology. I lost everything. And in that one sentence, you could hear the 40-plus years of marriage, the fights, the reconciliations, the betrayals, the laughter, the sickness, the survival, the madness.
Papa, 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 Papa. Papa, 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 Papa.
The music and the love that had defined her entire existence. For Sharon, losing Ozzy wasn't just losing a husband. It was losing the center of her world, the reason she had endured, the man she had built her life around, no matter how impossible he was. She remembered the first days after his death as if she were moving through fog. The house didn't sound right. It didn't feel right. For decades, there had always been Ozzy, shuffling around in slippers, muttering under his breath, swearing at the dogs, singing off-key at odd hours, breaking dishes, calling her name 10 times a day even when she was in the next room. Suddenly, all of that noise was gone and the silence was unbearable. People don't realize, she said softly, I never had silence in this house. Not once. And now, all I have is silence. It's like living with an open wound. The world knew Ozzy as the Prince of Darkness, the rock god, the man who bit the head off a bat and turned chaos into legend. But Sharon knew him as a boy from Aston, the kid who used to walk miles to buy fish and chips because it was the only treat he could afford. She knew him as the husband who, even after their worst fights.
So now, as far as where you at with the Parkinson's, are you feel like you're in a...
You know something? I never think about it. I don't go, oh, I got Parkinson's. Because it's so mild. I mean, it's ridiculous. If I don't take the medication, I tremor a little bit in the morning. I mean, as long as I take the medication, I'm fine.
It's more the spine injury that's been hindering you versus the Parkinson's.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Would crawl into bed next to her and whisper, I'm sorry, my darling, in that thick, mumbling accent. She knew him as the father who cried when Kelly was born, who told Jack stories about demons and angels, who quietly kept every photo Amy ever sent him even though she didn't live in the spotlight. And when he was gone, all of that went with him. Sharon admitted that grief for Ozzy was not clean, not saintly, not like the movies. It was messy. You don't just cry and move on, she said. You get angry. You scream into pillows. You think of every fight you ever had and wish you'd handled it differently. You wonder if you could have done more, if you could have saved him one more time. And then you laugh, because you remember something ridiculous he did, and for a moment it feels like he's still here. Then you cry again, because you realize he's not. It's a cycle that doesn't end. She recalled the little things that cut the deepest. Walking past his empty chair at the kitchen table, finding his slippers tucked neatly under the bed, opening a drawer and seeing his glasses still smudged, still waiting for him. Those things destroy you, she admitted, because they're proof that life just stopped. One day he was here, the next he wasn't. And yet, all his things are still waiting for him, as if he might just walk back in. Sharon's grief was complicated by memory, because Ozzy had never been easy. There had been affairs, the most public one with Michelle Pugh, which had nearly ended them for good. There had been addictions that nearly killed him more than once. There had been fights so bad, she wondered if love could survive them. And yet, every time, they had found their way back to each other. That was our story, she said. We were fire and gasoline. We burned each other, but we couldn't live without each other. And now I have to live without him, and I don't know how. She remembered the last days vividly. The way he held her hand, the way he still cracked jokes even when he was weak, the way he told her not to be afraid. He was braver than people gave him credit for, she whispered. People thought of him as this wild, reckless man, and he was also tender. He was scared of leaving us, but he didn't want us to see it. He kept saying, "You'll be all right, my love. You'll be all right." But I'm not. I'm not all right.
Your support over the earth has made it all possible for us to live a lifestyle with you. Thank you from the bottom of our heart. I love you, we love you. In the sun called Mama, I'm coming home.
Because when he left, he took everything with him. And then there was the funeral. Sharon described it as a blur of noise, music, tears, and chaos. Exactly what Ozzy would have wanted. I couldn't tell you half of what was said, she admitted. I was numb. I only remember the music. I remember hearing changes and feeling like my chest was splitting open. I remember Kelly screaming when the casket lowered. I remember Jack holding me up when I thought I'd fall. But mostly, I remember fans outside. They sang for him. They cried for him. They made sure the world knew who we had lost. And in that moment, I realized he wasn't just mine. He belonged to everyone. But even with the world's love, Sharon confessed she felt utterly alone. Because no one else had to go home with me, she said. No one else had to walk into that empty house, to crawl into that cold bed, to face the rest of their life without him. That's why I say I lost everything. Because it wasn't just losing a husband. It was losing my partner in chaos, my partner in crime, the man who made life unbearable and beautiful all at once.
I've been in a miserable, with this injury I had in my neck. It's been really miserable for me, you know, because I mean, when you go for surgery, you don't think the doctors are going to screw it up, you know. I mean, you got to live with it, you know. But I'm better than I was. I had to have 2 more surgeries to put right what he done. I don't think I'll ever walk properly again, but I'm trying my hardest to get going.
Without him, what am I? And then she paused, tears rolling down her face, and added, but I'll tell you this. He may be gone, but he'll never leave me. Because he's in every memory, every scar, every laugh line on my face. He's in our children, in our grandchildren, in the music that will outlive us all. He's in me. And maybe that's enough to keep going. Maybe that's how I survive. But don't get it twisted. When Ozzy went, he took my heart with him. I'll never get that back. Because I lost everything. And I'll never find it again. Sharon Osbourne said that when Ozzy died, it felt like someone had ripped the floor out from beneath her, leaving her free-falling through empty space. For more than 40 years, every single day of her life had been shaped by him. Whether he was beside her in bed, on the phone from some far-off tour, or even just in the background of her thoughts, Ozzy was always there. And now, suddenly, he wasn't. It's like waking up in a world where the sun doesn't rise anymore, she said, her voice trembling. I've lived through cancer, through bankruptcy, through betrayal, through scandal, through hell and back.
He's just... You can't dislike him. He had the best smile in the world. The best smile. He would smile at you and, you know, you just like...
But I never imagined this. I never imagined what it would feel like to be without him. And now I know. It feels like I've lost everything. The house itself became unbearable. Sharon had always complained about Ozzy's noise, the way he would mutter to himself, sing fragments of songs at 3 a.m, shout at the dogs when they barked too loudly, drop plates in the kitchen because he never learned how to hold them properly. She used to roll her eyes, tell him to shut up, or chase him out of the kitchen when he nearly set on fire trying to make toast. But now that noise was gone and the silence was deafening. She walked past the chair at the table and burst into tears because it sat empty, the seat cushion still slightly indented from his weight. She opened a wardrobe and saw his clothes hanging there, his leather jackets that still smelled of smoke and cologne, his old tour shirts so worn they were nearly transparent, his stage boots lined up in a row. And it broke her, because everything was waiting for him as if he might just walk back through the door. But he never will.
I'm Ozzy.
I'm Sharon.
I'm Jack.
And I'm Kelly.
That's the Osbournes here, folks.
Yeah, Osbourne podcast, and we're back after a 5-year hiatus.
Has it really been 5 years?
What have you been doing for
Five
Jack,
years.
you're joking.
What have you been doing for 5 years?
What have I been doing for 5 years? Oh,
Making babies.
yes, some.
Have you found out what causes it?
It's a very rare condition.
I feel romantic.
Shut up, Ozzy!
Just go to bed, darling.
Sharon whispered. That's what kills me. The world stopped, but his things are still here, taunting me. She admitted that grief brought back every memory, both good and bad. She thought of the early days, when they were young and reckless, when she risked everything to manage his career and keep him alive. She thought of nights when he stumbled home drunk, nights when she threw him out, Nights when she swore she was done with him forever. She thought of the betrayal with Michelle Pugh, how that nearly destroyed her, how she swore she would never forgive him, and then how, somehow, she did. Because no matter what, we always came back to each other, Sharon said. We were fire and gasoline. We burned hot. We burned bright. We burned everything around us. But we couldn't survive apart. I never learned how to live without him. And now I have to. She remembered the last conversations they shared, the ones that replay in her head at night when she can't sleep. He told her he was tired, that he didn't want her to worry anymore, that he loved her more than he could ever say. He wasn't poetic, Sharon said, tears streaking her cheeks. He was Ozzy. He mumbled, he stuttered, he swore. But I understood him. I always understood him. He said, "You'll be all right, my love. You're stronger than you think." But I'm not. I'm not all right. Because without him, I don't know who I am. The funeral was both a blur and a nightmare. Sharon said she barely remembers the faces, the words, the ceremonies. All she remembers is the music and the grief. When Changes played, she thought her chest would split in two. When Mama, I'm Coming Home echoed to the chapel, she broke down completely. She remembers Kelly's screams, Jack holding her up when she thought her legs would give way, Amy turning her head because she couldn't bear to watch the coffin lower into the ground. That sound, the sound of the coffin hitting the straps, the earth waiting for him, I hear in my dreams. It's the sound of finality, and it destroys me every time I hear it in my head. But she also remembers the fans outside, the thousands of them who had gathered, chanting his name, blasting his songs, crying as if they had lost a member of their own family. At first, Sharon admitted she resented them. Because he was mine, she said. He was my husband. He was my children's father. He was ours. And I wanted to scream at them, "You don't get to cry like that. You don't know what this feels like." But then I looked again, and I realized they didn't know him in their own way. He gave them pieces of himself through his music, through his madness, and they loved him for it. So maybe I wasn't alone in my grief after all. Still, when the day was over, when the casket was lowered and the fans went home, when the family drove back to the house, Sharon felt emptier than ever. She walked into her bedroom, saw the side of the bed where he used to sleep, the imprint of his body still fresh, and collapsed into tears. "That's when it truly hit me," she said. "I'd survived everything life threw at me because he was always there, even when he was the cause of the chaos. And now he's not. He's gone. And I've lost everything that made life worth living." She clutched a photo of them taken in the early years, before the fame nearly destroyed them, before the addictions, before the affairs, before the scandals. Just two kids, wild and in love, staring at the future like it belonged to them. "I still see that boy when I close my eyes," Sharon whispered. "Not the rock god, not the legend, not the Prince of Darkness. Just John Michael Osbourne from Aston. My boy, my love, my everything." And then she said the words that silenced the room around her. "I don't know how to live in a world without him. I don't want to learn. Because when Ozzy went, he took my heart, my soul, my laughter, my chaos. He took everything. And what's left isn't me anymore." Jack Osbourne's words about his father's death didn't just echo loss. They opened a floodgate of memories. Memories of growing up with the wildest, most unpredictable rock star in the world, but also the kindest father behind closed doors. Jack spoke about how Ozzy wasn't just a Prince of Darkness. He was also the man who would sit at the breakfast table, confused about what his sugar was, making everyone laugh without even trying. He remembered nights when Ozzy would fall asleep mid-conversation, head bobbing, and Sharon would nudge him awake only for Ozzy to say, "I was just resting me eyes," and then continue like nothing happened. Those were the moments Jack said he'd never forget. Not the fame, not the tours, but the laughter in their kitchen. The way Ozzy made the family feel like even chaos was a kind of love. At the funeral, Jack told stories that had people crying one minute and laughing the next. He spoke about Ozzy trying to operate the TV remote, constantly pressing the wrong button until the screen went blue, or the time he attempted to make toast and somehow set off every smoke alarm in the house. That was Dad. Jack said he could sell out stadiums, command a crowd of 80,000 people. But when it came to everyday life, he was hilariously hopeless. But the truth Jack shared was deeper than just the funny memories. He said Ozzy was his anchor, the one who, despite all the madness of rock and roll, always reminded him that family came first. Jack admitted that his dad's advice wasn't always conventional. Sometimes it was as simple as "don't be a dick," or "just keep going, Jack. Don't stop." Those raw, unpolished words were lessons he carried into adulthood. Sharon, sitting in the front row, couldn't hold back tears as Jack continued. He said his father's biggest gift wasn't his music or his fame. It was his ability to survive, to keep pushing through everything life threw at him. Addiction, accidents, near-death experiences. Ozzy lived through all, and somehow always had a joke on his lips. Jack called it the Osbourne spirit. Messy, chaotic, loud, but unbreakable. And then came the part that broke everyone. Jack revealed that the last thing Ozzy ever said to him wasn't about music or fame or even goodbye. It was simply, "I'm proud of you, son." The room fell silent. That was Ozzy stripped down to his core, a father who loved fiercely, even if he didn't always know how to show it. After Jack spoke, the room was heavy with emotion, but also buzzing with laughter from the stories only Ozzy could inspire. Jack went deeper, digging into the treasure chest of wild Osbourne family memories that no one could ever forget. He reminded everyone of the time Ozzy, half asleep and wearing nothing but a bathrobe, chased after a burglar in their garden. The poor thief had no idea that the rock legend himself would come charging out, hair everywhere, screaming gibberish like a possessed warrior. Jack joked, "That guy didn't get arrested, he got traumatized." Imagine being chased by Ozzy Osbourne in a robe at 2 a.m. The crowd erupted in laughter, because everyone knew Ozzy was unpredictable and yet always Ozzy. Jack then shared another story about how his dad once got into a serious debate with the family's Alexa device. Ozzy kept yelling at it to play a song, but it wouldn't respond because he was mumbling. After 20 minutes of swearing at the machine, Ozzy finally turned to Sharon and said, "This thing hates me, Sharon. It's possessed." Sharon had explained that maybe Alexa just didn't understand his accent. Alexa didn't stand a chance, Jack laughed, but she got a taste of what it's like being married to him. But Jack didn't shy away from the heavier memories. He talked about the countless hospital visits, the terrifying moments when they weren't sure Ozzy would pull through. He said, "Dad wasn't just a man. He was a survivor. Every time life knocked him down, he came back swinging, stronger, louder, and somehow funnier." One of the most emotional truths Jack revealed was how, during Ozzy's last months, the family had gathered around him constantly. Jack admitted that Ozzy hated hospitals, hated the thought of being weak. But when the family sat around his bed, playing old Black Sabbath records, Ozzy would close his eyes and smile. It was like he was back on stage again, feeding off the crowd. Only this time, the crowd was us, his family. Kelly Osbourne, wiping away tears, stood up to add her piece. She laughed through her sobs, recalling how Ozzy was always trying to help in the kitchen, even though he couldn't cook to save his life. She remembered one Thanksgiving when he insisted on carving the turkey, but ended up sending half of it flying across the room. "That was Dad," Kelly said. "Even when things went wrong, he made them unforgettable." Then she got serious. People saw the rock star, the crazy man biting bats and all that, but what they didn't see was Dad sitting with me when I was at my lowest. He didn't need words. He just held my hand and said, "I love you." That's who he really was. The entire service turned into a mix of grief and comedy, exactly how Ozzy would wanted it. No one could tell stories about him without making people laugh and cry at the same time. And then Sharon, when she finally stood to speak, her voice trembled, but it was steady with love. She said, "I lost my partner, my everything, my madness, my calm, my best friend." Sharon shared how Ozzy was the only man who could drive her insane 1 minute and melt her heart the next. She admitted she sometimes thought their marriage wouldn't survive, yet they always came back together stronger. Because, she said, when you truly love someone, no amount of chaos can tear you apart. Her breakdown came when she whispered, "I don't know how to breathe without him. He was my air." The room went silent, except for quiet sobs. But even in that moment, Sharon made sure Ozzy was remembered for the man he truly was, the fighter, the survivor, the eternal jokester in the heart of their family. After Sharon's voice cracked and she sat back down, the church was wrapped in silence. But silence never lasted long when Ozzy was involved. People started sharing more, almost like the funeral became a storytelling marathon where laughter and tears intertwined. Jack stood again, this time with a little smirk on his face, and said, "I can't let Dad go without telling the world about his love of animals. Because if you knew Ozzy, you knew the house was basically a zoo." He reminded everyone of the time their dogs completely destroyed the living room, tearing through furniture. And instead of being angry, Ozzy just said, "Well, at least someone's having fun." Jack laughed, adding that his father had such a soft spot for animals that he'd once taken in a crow he found in the garden and tried to teach it to talk. That crow never spoke a word, but Dad swore it laughed at his jokes. The crowd chuckled because it was exactly the kind of odd, tender thing Ozzy would do. Then Kelly couldn't resist telling the famous bat story, not the version the world knew, but the family's version. She said, "When Dad came home after that show, he looked at us and said, 'Well, I've done it now. They're never going to let me live this down.' And he was right. But he also couldn't stop laughing at himself. That was Dad. He'd do the craziest thing and then sit there giggling like a naughty schoolboy." Even Sharon cracked a smile at that memory, shaking her head. I told him, "Ozzy, you've gone too far this time." And he said, "But Sharon, the bat bit me first." The room broke into laughter, the tension momentarily lifting. Jack then leaned into another story. about how when MTV first pitched the Osbournes, they thought it would just show the chaos of living with rock legend. But the reality was far stranger. He said, what they didn't expect was Dad wandering into rooms muttering to himself, chasing cats with his slippers on, or calling us all idiots because the TV remote was missing when he was sitting on it. Kelly added, that show didn't make Dad famous. He already was. It just made people realize he was like everyone's goofy dad, only louder, funnier, and swearing a lot more. Then Sharon, tears in her eyes, admitted that those years on MTV had saved their marriage in a strange way. Because we stopped hiding the madness, she said. We let the world see it, and instead of breaking us, it reminded us that we were a family. The funeral turned into a surreal reflection of Ozzy's life. One minute people wiping their eyes, the next they were clutching their stomachs from laughter. But then Sharon's breakdown returned. Her voice trembled as she whispered, I was with him through every stage. The boy from Birmingham who had nothing, the man who conquered the world, the husband who nearly lost himself to addiction, and the father who found his way back to us. He was my whole life. And now, she choked on her words, unable to continue, and Jack wrapped an arm around her as Kelly held her hand. The silence this time was different, heavier. Everyone in that room knew they weren't just saying goodbye to a rock star. They were saying goodbye to the soul of their family. Then, almost perfectly on cue, one of Ozzy's old friends stood up and said, you know, Ozzy wouldn't want us all sitting here crying. He'd tell us to shut the F*** up and put some music on. Asterisk. And with that, the church filled with the opening riff of Crazy Train. Everyone laughed through their tears, because of course, only Ozzy Osbourne could have a funeral where grief turned into a sing-along.